Our next guest is a very inspiring and powerful Latina who I now see on the screen. I am beyond excited to welcome our closing keynote speaker, Marta Niño. Marta Niño is a 25-year technology professional who overcame significant challenges as an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. She has worked at large corporations in mobile hardware and software and recently celebrated her 17-year anniversary as a senior marketing manager at Adobe. Despite never imagining a future in tech, maybe like some of you, Marta found her path with the help of believers from different backgrounds. And now, as a marketer, speaker, and author of From a Shack to Silicon Valley, she is using her voice and story to give hope and offer her voice, her testimony, and a more human perspective to others. Marta's story is an inspiration to many and to the power of perseverance and determination. With that, you all are in for a great treat. I won't speak any longer, and you will now be welcomed by Marta. Marta, bienvenida. We are so happy to have you here.
Gracias. Thank you for having me, Amber. What an amazing introduction. Can you hear me okay, Amber? All good?
Yes,
Okay.
you are great. I'm going to pop off now, but you are great. And everybody, you are in great hands.
Yes, there's a whole team behind the scenes that's making all of this happen. And that's one of the most amazing things about Digital Nest is, all of the members do their own work. And I'm just so impressed. And one of the reasons why I just had to say yes to being here today. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Marta Niño. And, up until about 4 years, I don't think anybody knew me. And there was a reason for that. But, I was giving a tour at the company that I work at Adobe, and there was a group from actually Digital Nest. And let's pop up the picture. And this was the first time I actually had encountered, the members from there, an amazing place, right? So I'm going through the towers and I'm going through the bridges and I'm showing them this and I'm showing them that. And it was all amazing. And I was taking it for granted because I looked around at these children's faces from Digital Nest, and there was a couple that were like, yeah, I don't know if I can be there. And little did they know, I was not just a tour guide. I was also a marketer. I had been in Silicon Valley for over 25 years. And in that moment, the story that I had been keeping silent for so long had to come out. I just felt like it was time to speak. And after those are the kids that I was giving the tour. And actually, one of them is a board member. I'm so proud of them. But, with tears in one of those kids' eyes, I actually said, I am you. And that was the moment that everything changed because I actually had to come to peace with my story. It wasn't about the beautiful buildings. It wasn't about all of that. It was about what was my story and how can I get these kids to believe that they also could be at a place like I was showing them around. So that was a very amazing time frame. And a couple months passed, and Adobe actually had requested stories of diversity and inclusion. And they said, if anybody has a story, please submit it. And I said, oh my goodness, if they only knew my story, who talks about, where I come from. And let's show them where we come from. Let's show everybody where we come from. So this is my abuelita's house. I was actually one of the better houses in the neighborhood, believe it or not. It had no running water, no electricity, nothing. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever went to Mexico, my brother had to stack tires to make a toilet. And it was quite an amazing and life-changing experience for me to know that there was a reason why my parents decided to come here. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. I was actually born on the hills behind that house in a place called Pueblo Viejo in the state of Zacatecas. If anybody's from Zacatecas, please, chime in. I had no running water, no electricity. My house was made out of mud. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have a crib. My crib was a dresser drawer. And, stacked with a couple of cobijas, which are blankets, that's what my crib was. And my parents picked cotton. around the surrounding areas. As a matter, they picked anything around the surrounding areas. And quite frankly, there was no future for us in a place like this. So they decided to take the biggest risk they've ever taken and decided to come to El Norte, which was the United States, the North. And how were they going to do that? They had no money, nothing. So they hired a coyote. They didn't pay them. They had other people. They borrowed money from others. And they decided to take a risk and come over. Well, it wasn't that easy. You see, we didn't have documents, so we have to come in other ways. Luckily, we're adjacent to the United States. And so my parents were going to come and do the journey by foot. And they said, no, Martha can't come with you. She's too much of a baby and she's going to cry and give us all away. And that could lead to a lot of other things. So they said, Martha's going to have to take another route. So while my parents decided to come along the border hills of Mexico and San Diego, I was given to a stranger to pass as her daughter and come in a car. And the hope was to reunite on the other side. Hope. Imagine holding on to just hope. Hope. That has to be like the biggest expectation ever, right? Well, they did the trajectory, they went on the journey, and I did mine. And then, we were fortunate enough to come together. We ended up in Los Angeles for a little bit with a tia, with an aunt. And after that, my grandfather was here in Northern California, actually. He was working as a janitor to send back money to this little house where my aunts were living because they too needed to have a better future. So he was working at a soap factory here in Northern California, and he told my parents, there's work over here. So they came to Northern California, and in the heart of the Silicon Valley, in a time where there was very few Latinos, we came here for work. And we didn't have money, remember that. So where do we live? We ended up living in a place called Fremont in a little town called Niles, California, and in a 1-bedroom duplex home. And that home eventually became the home to 9 other people. There's people there all the time. My parents opened up the door to anybody that needed help. As a matter of fact, that's just what you do when you're an immigrant. You help people out. And nobody would know that we were there because we were quiet. That's what we were told to do. Be quiet. Wherever you go, don't say a word. Don't speak. Don't let anybody hear your accent. Don't tell anybody where you come from. Just work. Keep your head down and work. So that's what my parents did. I'm going to show you a picture of my mother. Now, this is my mother in about the age that I came over here. And imagine having her with her hands hand me over to a stranger and hope that everything would be okay. She did that. She did that. Many parents do that. As a matter of fact, there might be some Digital Nest members that have come to the United States like that. We just wanted a better life. We just want a better life. And I really love this picture because this is actually, it was never in color, it was black and white. And as our life started in the United States, the color started coming into our life. I just think it's a beautiful metaphor for life. So there we are in Fremont, California, and nobody knew about us. Nobody knew about us. We tried to stay silent. My parents didn't speak anything. As a matter of fact, when I was 5 years old, I by this time had 2 brothers, Marco and Carlos, and I became the family interpreter, like many of the Digital Nest board members do, and many underserved kids become by 5 years old. To show you the picture of me at 5 and how cute I was. I'm just kidding. This is me at 5 years old, and I was the family everything. I was the oldest child. I had to do everything for my parents. I had to speak for them. I had to become their immigration person. I had to read their medical documents. And as a matter of fact, around this age, my parents didn't even have insurance because they were working any job. They cleaned houses, they poured cement, they worked in construction, just anything that would come their way. And, we get sick. We're kids, right? We get sick. So I had all of these little dots on my body, and my brothers and sisters did too. My brothers did too. And my mom says, I think this is looking pretty urgent. Let's take the kids to the doctor, even if we didn't have any insurance. And at that time, the doctor looked at me and said, tell your mom you have chicken pox. What is chicken pox? Nobody teaches that in kindergarten. And chicken sounded like, gallina, pollo, gallina. And pox, I heard pop, like a jumping movement. And I turned to my mother and I said, Mom, we have jumping chickens. And in that moment, I remember my mom's face going, okay, you don't have jumping chickens. Maybe we need to continue to go to school. But, we learn. They don't teach you those kinds of things in kindergarten. But that's the type of life, us kids have to go through. We do a lot more than just be a child. As a matter of fact, we have to go into all of these adult situations because we have to. We have no other choice. I didn't know any other life besides working. As a matter of fact, my dad had only gone to school till 2nd grade and my mom till 6th grade. They were told that they had to get married, that they had to work. Education, yeah, it's a little different in other countries. If you have money, you can get an education. But here, it's a little different. We went to public school, but they knew nothing about the public school system, nothing. And it would have been great. And if anybody's listening here today, it would be great to team up immigration with education, because my parents would have done anything to get that green card at the time and not have to hide. Anything. So they didn't know that high school only had 4 years, not 3 like in Mexico. They didn't know the value of anything. As a matter of fact, their minimum wage job was a lot better than picking cotton in the fields. So poverty in the United States is so different than poverty in a different country, and to have that perspective. So by the time I was 10 years old, I actually had an opportunity to work. And of course I said yes, because my whole family had been doing that, from the time we were here. And all I heard was work, 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 work. Nothing about school. There was nobody who had any upper level education in my family at all. So how am I supposed to get examples? All I saw was people working. So I worked myself. So at 10 years old, somebody came to my door and said, we have this paper route. I don't know if you guys remember the little rolled up papers with the rubber bands. Well, I took on a paper route and I delivered 30, 40 newspapers a month. And for every newspaper that I delivered every day, even Saturdays and Sunday, I got $1. So $30, $40 for somebody who has no money, and at 10 years old is a lot of money. And I thought, well, this money thing is fantastic. So then I got another paper route with another 30 papers. And then I got another route for my Wednesday doubled route. And so that's how I made my money up until I was 14. I didn't have any extracurricular activities, nothing. As a matter of fact, I actually remember a flyer, a yellow flyer with black letters coming home. And I always used to throw this away because my parents used to look at it and go, cost money, I can't afford it. Although I was an amazing runner, I could have been an amazing person in track. I loved music. I could have done that, but we never could afford it. And my parents were always working, could never take me to those things. But except this one time, a flyer came home with black letters and it said art class, $20. And I thought, great, I'm just going to give it a shot and see what my parents say. And I said, Mom, there's this art class for $20. Can I go? Can I go? Can I go, please? And she said, yes. And I went to that art class and I was drawing this and I was drawing that. And I felt like such an artist. And at the end of the class, the teacher said, bring another $20 next week so you can join the class. And I was like, okay, my art days are over, right? And so that was the only time I was able to do an extracurricular activity. And I went back to doing what I did best, which was work. And I kept doing that. And by the age of 14, I was a little too old for the paper route. And let's jump to the next picture. I ended up at this amazing company, factory. This was the president of the company. She looked nothing like me. But I actually worked in the back of the warehouse. I worked in the back of the warehouse. And my mom was working in the back of the warehouse. As a matter of fact, that's how I got the job. They needed cheap labor, So I went And I was not very good at warehouse work. I tried, but my hands didn't do this and didn't do that. And, I was really frustrated with my lack of abilities for warehouse work. And this amazing woman named Beth didn't say leave. She didn't say that's it. She said, come to the front of the office and help me out, answer some phones and do some filing. And so I did that. I was like, what? I'm getting asked to go to the office. Typically when you go to the office, you're in trouble. But this time I was actually getting asked to the office to do something good. And I wanted out of the back and I needed money. So I said, absolutely. So I went there and I did everything this amazing woman told me to do because I didn't know anything else and I didn't want. It was cold back there and I kept breaking things. And so she told me, Martha, is there a typing class you could take in school? And at the time, typewriters were this big. And I said, yeah. She said, take it. So I took that class. She was the first one to give me advice ever in my life about school, ever. And she was at work. And so I did that. Obviously, it benefited her too. But I did everything this woman said. And so school was going great. School was going great. But at home, there was other things happening. My father was dying of cancer. My mom had to take on another job. It was a mess. My house was a mess. So work was okay. Home was not. And so the first day of my senior year, I was called into the office and the principal says, Martha, what are you doing here? And I said, what do you mean, what am I doing here? He says, didn't you get that note in the mail saying you're not allowed to come here because you missed so much school and your grades were taking a hit? And I said, no. And of course, my parents didn't know English. They might have received it, but they said, you're not allowed to come here anymore. And so within a few days, I was at a different school, a continuation school. That was one area of my life that I had kept silent because I work in an environment where people come from Harvard, from Yale, from Stanford. And for me to tell them that I came from a continuation school, for me to tell them I come from a grass shack, for me to tell them that I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything, but I ended up at this continuation school and it might have been the biggest blessing of my life aside from my family. I got there and there was people that were going through so many things. There was kids that were pregnant. There were kids that had drug issues. There were kids that were homeless. There were kids that had parents with drug issues. There was people who had no parents. And here you are telling them to get educated. We're dealing with real life problems here. And my father was dying too. So the counselor calls me in, kind of doing a check-in on me and said, how's it going? I go, great. My work is going great. He said, no, school. How's school going? And I said, not good. I'm here, right? And I was a rebellious teenager. Let's bring up the rebellious teenager picture. That's me right there, the one without the little square. I had hair this high and I looked very mean and I looked angry. And I think I might have been angry and sad and confused. And so I wanted to look as tough as possible. As a matter of fact, we all did, because nobody messes with people who look tough, right? But the counselor calls me in and he was digging it out of me. And he says, Martha, what are you doing here? And I couldn't get it. I didn't want to tell him. You just don't tell people these things, right? Shh. Who wants to air their dirty laundry, right? Well, he was relentless. And he says, why? Why are you here? And WHY are probably the 3 letters that changed my life. Why? Nobody had ever asked me why. And I finally had to tell him that my dad was dying and I needed to work. And he says, well, you're really behind in school. I said, yeah, I have about a year's worth of work to do. He says, well, you got about 4 months. So if you can do this, this, and this, and this within 4 months, maybe you can go back to your high school and graduate on time. And I said, what? Go back to my high school? that kind of felt good to look that principal that kicked me out in the face, and maybe I wanted to prove it to him, maybe I wanted to prove it to myself. But that plan he wrote down for me was a hope plan. And that was the first time I had ever got specifics on how to get out of a situation. Specifics, do this, do that, do that. My parents didn't know specifics. I needed somebody who knew more than me to tell me what to do. And he did. And within 4 months, I was back to that high school. And at the end of the year, I graduated on time. There's a picture of that. There's proof. I did graduate on time. You see the high hair? Like, that's crazy, right? We all had high hair. That was one of the proudest moments of my life. And during that time, my amazing boss, Beth, who you saw earlier, allowed me to work on the weekends and focus on school because I had to. I had to put in a whole year's worth of time during a 4-month period. So I had to do day school, night school, sideways school, I call it. That's what I had to do. So now what? What do I do after I graduate? I don't know. I don't know what to do. Again, I don't have a plan. I don't know what to do. So I started dabbling here and I started dabbling here. But what I really knew how to do was work. I knew how to work. So I went to work full time with Beth in the front of the warehouse, which, by the way, my mother still worked here. And it was I was kind of contradicted because there I was in the warehouse. I'm sorry, in the front of the office. My mom was in the warehouse and it was warm in the front of the office and it was cold in the warehouse. And I felt guilty for having a warm office. And my mom felt proud for me to be in the office. But there I was, and I ended up working with this amazing lady and kind of doing this kind of double thing with my parents in the back. But my mom was proud that I was in the front of the office. As a matter of fact, I was the first person in my family to ever be in an office. Having Beth say, come into the office was a big deal. One opportunity changed everything. All she said was, come in, help. I knew nothing. She knew more. She taught me. I had basic skills. I was a hard worker and I learned, and stuff like that. It's not rocket science. We just have to be guided. We just have to be guided. So this year I did sales. I did whatever she told me because she knew more than I did, and dabbling in college. And I did that up until I was 19 years old. And then by this time, things were going a little rough here in the United States, and things were becoming cheaper out of China. So China and Mexico. So she actually asked me to go back to Mexico, which was something I didn't want to do because, I was trying to come over here. And she said, you can manage the plant in Mexico. And at 19, I think that would have been cool. But my dad had just died and I needed to stay with my mother. So I stayed with my mom, and that was the last time I saw Beth. And then I started working at a company, cubicles out of all things, office cubicles. And I knew nothing about this business either, but I needed a job. And somebody taught me how to do it. And I went into purchasing in an office cubicle company. And I learned how many screws it takes to build an office, how much wood it needs, and how much paint a binder bin needs, all these weird things. I even bought a truck for $100,000 because, if you purchase screws, you can buy a truck, right? So I did that. And I was there for about 2 years. And then I was jobless. Life happens and you lose jobs. And I still did not have my degree because nobody had told me that what I needed to do. And so I went to a temporary agency, and they said, we have this job. And I heard sand on the phone, sand like arena, like beach, because I had one of those coil phones from the olden days. And it turns out that I'm like, okay, whatever, I guess I'll be in the sand business. I've done every other kind of thing. You just go with it. But it turns out when I walked into that building, it was a sound company, like sound, like from computers. And, computers back then were the size of refrigerators, and there was these sound cards. This is on the next slide. Sound cards out of, like, what is that? Like, you go from, this warehouse work to cubicles to this. Now what do? I didn't know what to do. I had to ask. People had to teach me. I was like, I guess we're doing sound now. And that was my entry into tech. I had no guidance. I just wanted a job. I had a network, and I was not afraid to try different things. As a matter of fact, the tech industry is so interesting because I think out of all the industries, this one is the one that is constantly changing. It's constantly new, and everybody in it are constantly doing different things and learning. So they made me feel really comfortable in this space. And so I stayed for 4 years, and I still did not have my degree. And by this time, I'm like, I'm getting old. I'm like, over mid-20s by this time. And I had more than dabbled into different classes. And I said, okay, something's happening. I need to get out of this place. I had, 4 years in. It was time to make a change. And I said, why is everybody getting promoted and I'm not? And I said, well, maybe it'll help if I have that one extra check mark. And so I went to the quickest college I can find, which was University of Phoenix. It wasn't the cheapest, but it was the quickest. And I only had 6 months worth of time and money. So I said, this is going to be it. So I did all of the, checks and balances as to what classes I needed to make. And within a very short amount of time, and I left this company, I got my degree. And it was one less thing I had to talk about or make an excuse for. I never, ever brought that up ever again. I just had it. So that's how I entered into tech. And I'm going to show the next picture. This is me about 4 years telling this story at Adobe Systems. I was scared to death about speaking. I was scared to death about talking. I was scared to death about telling my story. It was embarrassing, I thought. But once I started talking to many, many people about my story, because believe me, when you don't tell your story and you've never talked to anybody, you're like, oh my God, help, somebody help. So I went to every keynote speaker that I knew. I went to every YouTube that I knew was at. I went to all the TED Talks. I was just trying to get some information as to how we're going to do this. And I had gotten selected to tell my story by this time in front of 1,200 Adobe Smart executives. How was I going to tell my story if I never had told a story? And most of them probably had never heard that somebody from a shack, somebody who was undocumented, somebody who was kicked out of school, somebody who didn't have a degree, somebody who went to continuation, somebody who people thought was disposable can end up at a place like that. And I hadn't just been there a year. I had been there decades in this industry. And I said that. And I thought, from that moment on, like every time that I spoke, words of shame just fell off of my heart. This was not a story about me anymore. I had come to peace with, this is my story. These are my facts. Whatever you have gone through, those are your facts. There's nothing we can do about that. It is the past. And I came to peace with, there's nothing I can do about my past except learn from it and lessons. Eventually, let's go to the next slide. I wrote a book even? What? I wrote a book? I was failing English at one point and I wrote a book. But somebody saw something better in me than I saw in me. At some point said, maybe you should write a book. And I said, maybe I should. But I don't know how to write. I don't know good grammar. I don't know all of this. But there's people who do. There's people who know more stuff than we do. We just have to seek them out. So within a few months, I had this book done last year. But prior to that, I had been posting on LinkedIn a lot of my stories, actually. As a matter of fact, LinkedIn had a 3,000 character limit of stories. And that actually was my practice for writing short stories because I couldn't go over 3,000 characters. And I got really good at getting from the point up here to the point down here. And everything I wrote, I never wrote anything that I didn't feel in my heart. Like I literally had to be feeling something, and then I was like, okay, it's time to write. It's time to write. And I kept doing that and doing that and doing that until eventually I had something that was tangible. And eventually people started, oh, she comes from this place that nobody talks about in this way. Yeah, I do. I talk about that. So I haven't stopped speaking and I haven't stopped writing. I'm an author of the other side, from a shack to Silicon Valley. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to read you guys. I'm going to read you guys a poem. Look, this is it's right there. I'm going to read you the poem, The Other Side. I actually made this poem, wrote it. I've been on the other side where loved ones cried their last goodbyes. I've been on the other side where I've fallen despite the tries. I've been on the other side where kind words were just not heard. I've been on the other side where I was told not to say a word. I've been on the other side where better was just a dream. And I've been on the other side where that job just didn't quite seem. I've been on the other side by myself and all alone. I've been on the other side where my home was not my own. But I've come out the other side, greeted with hope and openly hugged. I've come out the other side, guided with smiles and unconditionally loved. I've come out the other side, ready to show what I've got. I've come out the other side, but not for once have I forgot. So that's a little poem I wrote. And there, see right here. I also wrote it in Spanish. The book's coming out in Spanish because there's a big demand in my community for books in Spanish. And I hope that it gives guidance to the parents of the kids that we're helping in these communities, these migrant communities, these, places where there's a lot of immigrants and people from other places. And I want them to know that the kids that come from here can add value. As a matter of fact, coming from different is pretty cool. If I can give you one word of advice or one, thing of advice, is when you're in an interview, you're interviewing, people are in the tech industry are interviewing 20, 30, 40 people, maybe even more. Many of them are going to tell the same story. They went to high school 4 years. They did this another 4 years. They're going to have the same projects at school, but what we have to bring to the table is different. That has value, and let's not hold that back. People want different ideas. If they wanted a lot of the same, they'd hire robots. Okay, let's bring us to the table everywhere. So that's a little bit about me. I have been a board of directors at Digital Nest. I'm honored. The moment that Jacob asked me if I wanted to be a board of directors, I immediately said yes. I knew his story. I knew that he started Digital Nest because he saw somebody on the steps that was getting Wi-Fi because they couldn't get Wi-Fi in their house. Come on, we're in the heart of the Silicon Valley and people still don't have Wi-Fi. So thank you. Thank you, Jacob, for starting this amazing organization. And I hope that people can see the value of just connecting all of us, and also the value of the members that you're attracting, because we can go from that side to the other side. We're doing it, and I am proof of that, but we can't do it alone. And I know, because in every one of my stories, every one of my journeys, I needed people who knew more than me. I needed people, I call them believers, that had more than me, that had gone through other things more than me, and that had taught me and were not afraid to guide me. One of my most proud moments was doing that tour for Digital Nest, where I was a guide. I was nothing more than just a guide, and that changed my life. So thank you for coming to Adobe that day, because I don't think I would have, that was a very, very big moment in my life. And we just need that one opportunity, that one open door, like Beth gave me that one time, and somebody to just accept me. We don't need to look like each other, you guys. We just need to want better for each other, just better. And Digital Nest is giving us better, and I am proof of that. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, let me know now. I'm happy to answer them. That's my story. I really believe in what Digital Nest does. I believe in all of the youth and amazing talent behind the scenes that's making this event amazing. Anytime you can join any of their events, they throw a great party, and they're just near and dear to my heart, which is one of the reasons I wore this heart necklace today. So thank you so much. And if you're giving opportunity, please consider the talent from Digital Nest, because I know they work hard and I know they're good learners and I know they're amazing. So this speech, my story, my life, is in memory of the people that are not here anymore. My father, who I wish could see me now, but I think he is. And then my first mentor, Beth, who has no idea what she did for me by just opening that door. And the millions and millions and millions and millions of immigrants that are in the United States just searching for a better life. So thank you so much. Just know that we're all just trying to be better, and Digital Nest makes us better. So thank you. Peace, love, everybody. Any questions? I have some time for Q&A.
Marta, just wanted to flag that in the chat, there's a couple of questions that have come through for
Okay.
you.
Okay. Let's see.
So let me go ahead and read the first one while they're because a couple of them fell back. The first one was, how do you fight imposter syndrome working in tech as a Latina when there aren't many of us? And this particular person said, I live in Minneapolis, so there's even less.
Yeah.
I'm transitioning to software engineering and feel like a big imposter sometimes.
Yeah. And I think, that's everybody that I've ever met, it doesn't matter where they come from, they all have imposter syndrome. And it could be at the highest level, the lowest level. It doesn't matter if they look like me or don't look like me. Like, everybody has some kind of imposter syndrome. So what I've come to realize is that we need to do our best to show that we're not gonna bring that to the table. If we do, it's just gonna hold us back. There's only 2% of people in tech, and we need to be fighters, and we need to be loud, and we need to bring ourselves to that amazing boardroom table and not hold back. We are powerful people, and just because we haven't been there before doesn't mean that they can't say, "Who the heck is that?" So I have found power in kind of feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Like, let's get comfortable in being uncomfortable. Like, I think that once I kind of start feeling a little bit like that, I'm like, oh, this means that I gotta fight to be here, and I have to voice myself. So how do you fight imposter syndrome? You fight it head on. You fight it head on, because otherwise nobody's gonna know how amazing you are. Believe me, if you don't say, if you don't do, nobody will know. So I think it's worse to be silent and hidden and in a corner and people not knowing how amazing we can be. So I know it's uncomfortable, but let's be comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's
That
really great advice, Marta. Another question that we had come in from Jason Reyes, was, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge for me in my career was just not having an educational direction. That was one of them. Like, I think that, if you're going to the Digital Nest, or you have some guidance in your high schools, your college, like, you're way ahead than I was. So I think me having no direction was definitely a challenge, because I had to find it, and I had to find amazing smart people and see what are they doing, and kind of self-educate myself. And so I think not having a clear educational path for me was not good. But at the same time, not knowing what I had to do kind of kept me a little bit fearless, because I didn't know certain things until it was time to look at them. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but that was one. So if you don't know your educational path, go find it and go get specifics. Like, I talk about, that counselor at that school who gave me very specific things to do in order to achieve a certain thing. Like, I think as a first gen person, or I'm zero gen, I guess, because I was born in Mexico, um, having specifics makes a difference. So another that was another challenge. I didn't have specifics. And then in the tech world, quite honestly, it's um, there's a lot of smart people there. And I think rather than us against them, I like to go at it as, hey, can you tell me what you know? Like, can you show me how you did that? And I know that's hard to do, but that's how again, another obstacle that I think is there, but I countered it with just being curious and giving people, you know what? People like pats on the back and people like to hear that they know a lot. So it's like, hey, can I have 15 minutes and teach me what you know, or how can I be as good as you? There's ways around that, and I think those are some of the things and challenges that I've had, and some ways that I've actually overcome it. And I say yes. I say yes to a lot. If it feels good, even if I haven't done it, like like that talk at Adobe, I had never done that. Okay, but I guess that's now how am I going to do it? Just like when I got into the sound industry, right? It's like, okay, I'm here, but it feels pretty good. But how am I going to do it? Let's be curious. Let's learn. There's YouTube now. There's so many other things. And use your networks on LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, LinkedIn with me. Use your networks on LinkedIn. There's some amazing people on there that are more than happy to give you 15 minutes. I hope that answered that question. So lots of challenges, but we can overcome them, Amber.
That's awesome. I'm gonna pop on the screen just so that I'm not a voice of God. It's like weird. Where is it coming from? So you know what, Marta? I think, and I just saw another question come through, but I think this is something else that also our students here and the folks that are on the panel. I resonate with your story a lot too. My parents were immigrants. They came from Peru, but also when they were going through Mexico, utilized coyotes to make it across the
Yeah,
border. And I think, for many people here, you have folks' dream job potentially, right? And I think, I'm a graduate student myself right now, trying to recruit for internships, and in a year I'll be recruiting for a job.
yeah,
And I think it can be really hard. So you've talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. You've spoken a little bit about kind of the obstacles that you faced. But right now, for these young people that are trying to break into tech,
yeah.
like what would you say is either the pathway that they can take or any advice that you would share for them
Yeah.
today?
I would say that, if you're working on projects, bring your projects with you. I mean, when I started working or, interviewing for jobs, I actually used to take physical printed, now there's digital, like you have digital work, put it out there, show people what you can do. I think that employers are looking for what makes you unique. Is it a project? Is it a particular assignment you worked on? Do you do something really cool outside of work? Are you a photographer, a videographer? Just something that you can bring to the table that might make you stand out. I think is the best thing to do. Just start your portfolios now, like if you haven't, and save all of your work, because also when you're in front of a interviewing panel, and I've interviewed people, it's a really cool conversational piece. Oh, what is that? And then you show me, and then now we have a whole, or then it leads to other questions, so I think having those portfolios are critical, especially in the tech world. So all of these classes that Digital Nest gives you, and there's things that you're doing there, it's valuable. That's super valuable. So bring that to the table. And by the way, I think sometimes as me as a Latina, and in my culture, we sometimes undervalue our projects and our things that we do, and we think that we're talking too much, and we think that maybe we're showing off. No, 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 no. Believe me, the next person after you that looks nothing like you is going, I can do. They're saying that, okay? So we can't hold back anything. This is your chance. This is your chance. So you're saying that I have people's dream jobs? Yeah, because I went in there and I said I could do nothing like me, look like me at the time. So I had to learn from other people. So that's one thing that other people do, is they just say it, they bring it, they say it. And it's not, if you're being called into an interview, that means that they already want you. They saw what was on paper. Now it's just a matter of, can we have coffee together? Can we get along, in the coffee room together? Seriously, you're brought in. It's like, oh, this person looks pretty cool. I wonder if we can go to lunch together. I wonder if they get along with the group together. Now it's just a matter of fit. So consider yourself, in 1 foot. Now it's up to you to close the deal with your amazing personality, your amazing projects, your amazing story. Don't hold that back. Bring your whole self to that interview. Okay.
Yeah, that's really great advice, Marta, because I think that can definitely get lost, and I've been guilty of that myself in my own career, where I want to be like humble, or I am not speaking up more, and so that is really great advice. I want to give a shout out to Araceli, who, just so you know, she commented that you have a powerful story and she wished that your story could be shared with all students in their community. And
Yeah.
so she asked that how they can purchase your book, but our amazing team here shared the link. So folks now have the link, where they can get your book, so that they can share it with more folks in the community. So thank you so much, Araceli, for asking that
But
question.
Araceli, real quick though, I started this thing, and Jacob was there when I started it, of donating books. So I actually have sponsors that
Mm,
books for free to the community. So depending on how many you need, Araceli, just ping me. I might already have them for you. I did that with some schools in Modesto.
awesome.
Three classrooms needed books. I gave them the books. They were free because somebody, else paid for them. So this whole like paying for books and the story being in the classroom can be a thing, and they can zoom me in too. We can work that out too. So Tennyson High School in Hayward just asked for 300 books. So there is power in these stories of coming from
That's
this
right.
to this. Yes. And whatever that is. So if we want books, we will figure out a way to get books. We will figure out a way to get books.
That's awesome. You heard that, Araceli. All you have to do is ping Marta. And that's amazing, Marta. In a moment in time where some books are getting removed from curriculums, I think it's important to make sure that our stories, especially those, different and diverse stories like ours, are being put at the forefront.
Yeah, and I also think that, in my community, many kids don't have books growing up. So
Hmm.
I think us, giving it to them through sponsors, and a lot of those sponsors are in the tech industry, like they are believing
They
that we
are.
have value, and there's never been a better time. I mean, we hear diversity, let's take advantage of that. This is our time. Let's go in there and get those jobs. As a matter of fact, there's 700,000 tech jobs open that nobody can fill. Why not us?
Yeah. Why not
Why
us?
not us? I'm just,
Yeah.
why not us?
We have one more question come in. Folks are curious. Do you have someone at Adobe that you look up to as a mentor?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people at Adobe, and I don't know if any of them are here or they'll listen later, but there was this one woman, I'm going to shout her out. Her name is Mala Sharma. She's the vice president of creative products. And Mala used to be my manager at Creative Labs, a sound company.
No kidding.
No kidding. We go back
Wow.
about 27 years. And although we didn't work at every company together, she came from India, very
Hmm.
well educated, totally, looked different, but she was very kind and had an open door policy. She was also very direct when she needed to be. She wasn't easy on me. She taught me. And anyways, I worked with her for 4 years, and eventually we ended up at Adobe together. And she's managing a whole other department, but I can still call her and ask her for advice, and she'll knock me down every time sometimes. But just the other day, she said yes to an initiative and bringing 50 kids from um, Avid, which is another program that some of the schools have.
Mhm.
And we're showing them product, we're giving them tours. So we have to continue, even if she said no, we have to continue to ask and see when we can get the yeses. So, and these mentors are super smart. These people are super smart. So I think it's important for us to ally with as many people we look up to as possible.
That's
And
right.
by the way, what I mean by mentors sometimes, it's really friends.
Mm. Yeah.
It's really friends. So if you can go have a cafecito with them, if you can talk about your cat, your kid, or whatever with these people, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Don't be so formal. Even if on LinkedIn, don't be so formal. I liked your story. That was cool. Like the flower on your head. Don't need people have enough work to do. They don't need something sounding like I need to give you work back. So being a mentor and asking for a mentor, I think we have a really unique opportunity by just being ourselves, by just speaking from the heart and asking for that help literally from the heart. Like, if I really need help from somebody, I'd be like, "I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? I really want," you never know how many people will actually say yes.
Mhm.
So I think that's where the humility comes in, Amber, where
Yeah.
when we ask for help, not necessarily like what we've done. I think what we've done needs to be shouted from the rooftops.
Mhm.
Work, but it's like how we ask for help and how we come to the table as humans is really what I think makes the difference. Because that person, Mala recommended me to another job in mobile before.
Mhm.
Yes, I was a good worker. We have to work hard, but she
Mhm.
also knew me,
Yeah.
you know.
That's amazing. That's really great to hear, and I think you're so right. So much of it is rooted in friendship, and I think this ties back to something you said earlier, which is really continuing to lean into your authentic self. Like there's so many things that, as a community, as individuals, we can do so well, and it's about your authenticity. So I think that's so true.
It's hard to do that. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they're like, I'm just trying to blend, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to blend. And I said, why blend? Blending is the easy way out of things. I think it's like, okay, we blend, we look just like everybody else, but reality is the world is needing what makes you different. And it's a scary place to be, especially and you might have to be that first person to unblend yourself and stand out.
Hmm.
Look at me, like nobody had ever heard anybody come from a shack in Silicon Valley. Who
Yeah.
does?
Yeah.
Maybe there's others. I don't know, maybe, but they're not saying anything. I
Mhm.
I think that there's a time and a place for everything, sure. And I think at the beginning of their career journey, maybe is not the right time. Maybe you get a little bit more comfortable and all of that. But in the meantime, I'm here. I'll shout it for you. I'll shout it
Mhm.
for you because we can add value. And I think that's the other thing. I mean, in our communities, loyalty is big. Like if you helped me like get a job in an industry that look it was so far from my world, you just changed my life. You
Yeah.
might have just changed the cycle of poverty for me
Yeah.
and for the generations like I'm going to work for you all day long. We can bring loyalty to that. We can now you're my family. Now I'm inviting you to my kids' quinceañera.
That's right. Yeah.
You see?
Marta, we had one more question, and this might be our final question for the time.
Okay.
But they said, "What is your favorite thing about having a career in marketing?" And at the same time, also, what is one of the most challenging things about this career?
Yeah. So, one of my favorite things about marketing is that marketing is not a science.
Mm,
It's a let's throw this at the wall and see if it sticks and hope we didn't spend our money like doing too much
yeah.
money doing that. But I actually think that marketing is a very creative field and it was perfect for me because as you can hear, I'm a little bit all over the place. I have a lot of energy and I have a lot of ideas. So it was perfect for me to have a job where we're constantly coming up with different ideas on how to get attention for the product, service, or whatever it is that we're selling. So my favorite thing is just it's always different. It's always different. Marketing could be in person. We're doing marketing right now.
Mm,
Marketing is in person. It could be digital. It could be at an event late next week. It could be, it's so many different things. And I actually like the the many different ways that marketing can get to different humans and trying different things that works for me, and that's why I've been in marketing over 2 decades. The things that I don't like about marketing is sometimes you do try some of these things and they don't work, and they might be like something you thought was going to work and it's so devastating. But I think that we have to be okay with, okay, next one. you know
yeah.
you can't take it so personal sometimes, that you just got to keep going and keep trying different things. And yes, we might have invested money into certain things that don't work, and that hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
But we are resilient people.
That's right.
And I think it's important to, and I wrote about this the other, it's important when we fall and feel low about whatever, whether it's a
Mhm.
program or whatever, don't stay in there too long. Don't see get out of okay, yes, dwell on it, whatever marketing program didn't work, but get out of it. And that's the same for anything in life. If you're feeling low, like don't stay in it too long. Like just get out of it as soon as possible. Because the duration you're in that space, low space matters.
Mhm.
So, anyways, marketing is a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And it's all about, getting attention to what you're trying to sell, trying new things. And it's never really quite wrong, unless, there's advertising madnesses, which, happen too.
Yeah.
But for the most part, try new things, see what sticks, go from there.
That's awesome, and I can totally tell how your energy and your creativity works well in the sector, so that's really awesome, and I
How are we
think
going to sell creative products? Let me tell you, da, 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 have this.
yeah, well, it's a great way to channel your energy and get paid for it in a way that is sounds like it's fun for you,
Yeah.
and it results in money for, I mean, in this case, Adobe, which is great for them.
And on the personal front, my other creative outlet is the writing.
Mm,
The writing, that's a creative outlet for me. That's one that calms me down. That's one where I'm just like very zen, and we're talking about heart, and those are like that takes me to a totally different space, which gives me a lot of balance. And you can make money that way too.
yeah, no, that's so true.
Mhm.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of our participants who asked questions. Marta, you got a lot of love in the chat. People really were appreciative of everything you said. We had folks from Modesto as well who were really happy that you sent out books to their community. I'm actually from Stockton myself,
I can
so
send more. Just let me know where.
that's actually really great to know because I think again your story is so relevant and it's inspired it's relevant because I think many of us have felt either maybe not it's not the exact same story, but we can see ourselves in you and it's also extremely inspiring. So thank you, Marta, for having the courage also to write your story because it's not
Yes.
always easy to do so, like you said. Like maybe you're not the only one, but you're the only one who's saying something about it. And
Yeah.
it's important.
And by the way, if you want to write your story or have a story, I know how to get you guys published. I'm just letting you know.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
doing mental note of that.
seriously, if we don't document ourselves, no pun intended, if we don't document ourselves, who's going to document us? It's got to be us. It's got to be us. Otherwise, the story is going to be heard from somebody else in other people's words. So I encourage everybody to consider even writing a 2-3 page something. Send it over. We'll figure it out. There are people that want our stories in our words
That's right.
out there, and kids, you guys younger than us that are coming up in the world that need to hear our raw stories, raw, unfiltered, nothing.
That's right. That's so true. Thank you, Marta. I think that's also some of the best advice I got when I was an undergrad. I had an op-ed published in the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was because somebody came up and was like, we need to hear your stories. And I was like, okay. And I submitted it random, and it got published. And I think you're right. Like we often don't realize how valuable our stories are and how many people actually want to hear them.
They do. And people from all over the world, India, Africa, there's people like us everywhere. There's underserved people everywhere, people that are not believed in. So this is not a just Latino story. And that's why I feel like my
Mhm.
story, it's a story of coming from nothing and feeling less than and then overcoming. That's it.
That's
And
right.
that is universal. That's a humanity story. It just happens to be wrapped up in this thing. That's
That's
all.
so true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Marta. We'll say bye to you now, but we're super appreciative for your time, for your beautiful heart, your beautiful flower, and your beautiful smile.
De Mayo.
I know. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your energy, your story, and I think we've all learned a lot today. So thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
I see everybody in the chat. Thank you so much. All right. Peace and love, everybody. Adios.
Chasito.
Adios.
All right, people, we are just a few moments away from announcing our raffle winners. I want to give one final shout out to our amazing sponsors who help make this event possible. So we're going to go ahead and show them on the screen one more time. And I promise this is the last time you're going to hear me go through all these names. But we want to make sure they feel loved and they feel special. So to our conference partner, Taylor Farms, Paystand, Latino Education Advancement Fund, UCSC and UCSC Baskin Engineering, Cisco, Cabrillo College, CSU Monterey Bay, Santa Cruz County Office of Education, Workforce Development of Santa Cruz County, Driscoll's, Concrete Rose Capital, First Capital Bank, KSBW8, Pacific Cookie Company, Cura, the Golden State Warriors, Forward Motion Inc., and HP. Shout out to all of you who helped also put on this event. Shout out to those of you who joined us this year to invest this time in yourselves and to take full advantage of what NetFlight has to offer. I hope that in the next year or so, we hear from many of you about the amazing opportunities that you've managed to connect to. And don't forget that this is also an invitation for all of you to stay connected with Digital Nest. You can follow them on Instagram at Digital Nest, or you can follow them at Nest Flight Con to stay in the loop. And I urge you all to do this because Digital Nest, this is the biggest event that we're sort of known for as an organization, but there's so many other opportunities in your local community that you could potentially participate in. And so it's definitely worthwhile to keep following them. And I know that sometimes they even post some cool jobs on their Instagram. And so you want to make sure that you're following into those as well to make sure that you get them. All right. So let me see. I'll do one last reminder that if you want, and I'll pop it in a second, unless my buddy Sandy can help me out. But feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like. I am here for you to connect with you, to be here with you. If you didn't hear my intro in the beginning, I'm Amber, born and raised in California, raised specifically in the Central Valley in Stockton, California. And I'm currently doing my MBA at MIT and my MPA at the Harvard Kennedy School. So thanks, team. So that's my LinkedIn if you want to connect with me and stay in touch in some way. I'd love to continue to follow your career journeys and be helpful along the way for you if I can be. And this is also an invitation for you all. If you wanted to share your LinkedIn in the chat, go ahead and feel free to do so for others to connect with you as well. Or, of course, you can use this platform to chat and meet with folks. Whatever feels right for you. All right. We will also be sharing, I know I've talked about the scholarship a couple of times. Those are not going to be till the end. But right now, we are going to announce our raffle winners for those other prizes that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So our first two raffle winners that are going to be getting some Poly headphones are, just drum roll, Dianita Rosales and Ivan Franco. So Dianita and Ivan, if you all are here, congratulations. We are thrilled for you. You have won the first two Poly headphones. So congratulations. The winner, let me see. Seems like I've dropped. Give me 1 second. If you all can hear me, please let me know on the chat. Let me just give me 1 second. I'm getting mixed messages from my tech team. So if a participant can let me know if you can hear me, that would be great. Let's see. All right, I'm going to keep going. Thank you, Leah. You're awesome. Patricia, also amazing. Fernanda, Ruby, you all rock. Okay. Awesome, folks. Mil gracias. Thank you for the patience. So we are going to say one more time the next winners. So our winner of the One Wheel Pint is Nancy Martinez. Nancy, felicidades. Congratulations. We are super happy for you. And lastly, I know this one's pretty cool because I'm not going to lie. I have been to the Golden State Warriors suite when you get that free food, and it's pretty nice. The winner of the 2 suite tickets to a 2023 Golden State Warriors game is Thorsten Hess. Thorsten, if you're on here, congratulations. All right. So that's our winners, Dianita, Ivan, Nancy, Thorsten. Congratulations, all of you. Our team will be in touch with you later about these prizes. So congratulations, and we will send those out to you when we can. And don't forget that we will be raffling 3 scholarships, which we will announce to the winners via email and on social media. All right. So stay tuned. And with that, if you can believe it, Thank you to everyone who helped make Nest Flight 2023 possible. I want to give a huge, huge shout out to Catherine and to Sandy, who have been on the back end. You've probably seen them, maybe you haven't, but they've been great. They've been making sure that when I drop off or when somebody drops off, that you are being taken care of, both in the chat and outside of that. Thank you to Jacob for founding Digital Nest, for ensuring that we have a space to gather in this manner. And of course, to the entire Digital Nest and Nest Flight Con team, we could not have done this without you. Thank you for bringing me back year after year. I've done this in person, I've done this virtually, and I always have a great time. And I am so thankful for having the chance to get to know all of you. And while you may have been inspired by some folks this weekend, either through the keynote speakers that you heard, or any mentor sessions or just individual chats that you've seen, I want to remind all of you that your story is amazing on its own as well. You are somebody else's inspiration. And so don't ever forget that. We are thrilled and blessed to have you all here in this space with us. And we can't wait to have one of you in one of our panels in the near future. This work would not be possible without you. And we do this because of you. So thank you all so much. Congratulations to all of our raffle winners over the next few days. And we will be signing off now. And thank you all so much. If you've all already filled out our surveys, thank you, thank you, thank you. You help us make this event better every year, and for other future students as well. Congratulations and good luck with and have a great weekend. All right, chasito. Bye, everybody.